Welcome back to the Makers of MidCity podcast. I'm your host, Clark Dunn.
I'm Anthony Rossi, Director of Property Management with RCP Companies in MidCity District.
And today we have the opportunity to have Drew Stewart of the Orion Amphitheater, the Sustainability Manager for the Orion Amphitheater. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited for the opportunity.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about what being a Sustainability Manager means, because I think that's, especially, the sustainability is always a topic of conversations just in a variety of different industries, but what does it look like for you at the Orion?
So sustainability at the Orion is my role for Sustainability Manager is making sure that we are operating with as little negative impact on the planet as possible. But the way I like to look at it is trying to make as much positive impact on the earth as possible, trying to find ways that help to replenish, nourish, and restore, our local environment and the environment as a whole.
And so kind of talk a little bit about some of the initiatives and some of the unique things that y'all do as a entertainment hub, as an amphitheater, kind of with some of the products that y'all have that maybe the person listening to this that has experienced it when they've come to a show.
Yeah, so with our guest experience, the first thing that they'll come in and notice, we have a lot of native plants around the amphitheater. We do that in order to reduce the amount of water that we're using and to help the local ecosystem flourish a bit. Native plants also reduce the amount of resources that are needed to keep your landscaping alive. So a plant that's used to being here is going to use less water than one that isn't. Then when they move on and go to get their first drink at one of our bars, they'll be served in a reusable cup. And this is definitely the largest part of our sustainability effort. It makes everything else work. So our reusable cup program has been around as long as the amphitheater itself has. It was there for our first shows. It's here for our most recent ones. To date, we've used 992,000 of those cups. We're going to hit 1 million tomorrow night, which will be our Lil Wayne concert. So that's a huge milestone for us and for the industry as well. To the best of my knowledge, speaking with the company that does the washes for our cups, we are the single largest user of these cups in the Southeast and potentially in the United States. So it's a huge milestone for not just the Orion, for Huntsville, but for the live entertainment industry as a whole. So these cups help us to be more sustainable because instead of serving in a single-use cup, because we are an all-pour venue, so all of the drinks that we serve are poured into another cup from whether it be a beer can, glass bottle, or mixed drink. They're being served in these reusable cups. It just helps promote artist safety, and it helps us on the back end be more sustainable because we're able to immediately recycle whatever vessel that drink was originally served in. So we are able to do it with a very high efficiency. So our bartenders have a glass bin and an aluminum bin right next to them, and they're able to just immediately recycle it. And then from there, we're able to put them into separated waste streams. And we have very, very low cross-contamination. So that's, glass and the aluminum and the glass, trash and either one. So the reusable cups are really our champion for that because they help us to recycle with very high efficiency. So far this year, the Orion has recycled 57% of all the waste it sends out. That's different from the waste diversion rate, which is your recycling rate plus whatever you don't send to landfill, whether that be through waste to energy or composting or other sources. So the Orion has a waste to energy facility, Reworld, here in Huntsville that we work with. So whatever we don't recycle and we don't compost gets sent to Reworld, and that is turned into steam energy for Redstone Arsenal. And that helps us send zero waste to landfill. And we've also had that zero waste to landfill commitment since we first opened in 2022.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting too is just a lot of the things like you've talked about is things that most anybody that's gone to the shows probably don't really realize is actually being done and is actually happening. But one thing that's kind of slowly started to get a little bit more public awareness just from the show I was at last night that I've noticed is the gardens that y'all have planted. We were talking a little bit about that off air and just kind of the process of building that out. Talk a little bit about what that looks like and kind of where those like those were always kind of a part of the Orion, but to the public they weren't maybe seen as often. To now, I mean, you're hoping to have close to 30 done by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. So with the gardens, when I first started here, I had never grown anything successfully. I tried to grow corn the previous summer and I killed it. It's very difficult to kill corn. You actually have to actively try. Corn's a grass.
That's impressive.
They're very resilient, and I managed to do it. So coming into the amphitheater and being told like part of my role is going to be managing this garden, making sure that everything's running as it should, that was a bit intimidating. But I believe in just continuous improvement, trying to build upon my skills. So a lot of YouTube later, and since then, a lot of YouTube and just practice, trial and error. I've gotten better. I had a really good mentor in my previous boss, Shelby Dixon. She's phenomenal, especially for the gardening and just everything else with sustainability. She came along with Ryan Murphy and a lot of our other original staff from the St. Augustine Amphitheater, where they had a similar garden set up. One of the first things that I noticed when I came to work at the Orion on my first day was there were a bunch of these cedar beds that were still being built. And are these going to be the garden beds? Yes, they are. So we started out with 13 of those, and the first plants we had came from Operation Green Team. I had gone in for just kind of public question and answer thing at the Lehman Ferry headquarters, and they had a bunch of collards and lettuce, and they were trying to get rid of it. And I was like, I would love to take some because free plants are great. And that first winter, we had collards and lettuce, and it all did really well. And then we had a big freeze come through and took out all those plants. One of my goals for the garden is to supply as much for our artist catering, for our restaurant with Odette, and for the food and beverage service as possible. So one of the goals that we have is to supply 100% of one of the garnishes, and it's looking like Spearmint is going to be that garnish. So next year we're aiming for, in the production season, 100% of all the spearmint that we use as a garnish on whatever mixed drinks that we're producing to be from the garden. So we don't want to order anything from any of the big kind of food service companies. This year I really pushed to expand the gardens because in 2024 we won Best Sustainability Initiative from Venues Now, which is now incorporated in Polestar, for the artist gardens, because we started a circular system as we got composting back on track. So a lot of the food waste that the Orion produces will get composted, and we actually get some of that compost back, and we're able to add that to our soil. So we're able to just get a full loop of, we get the compost, we grow plants in it, whatever plants get wasted and our food service get composted again, and we're able to just keep looping that. So that was a big part. And then, there's also a lot of logistical reductions that happen when you're growing your food on site. One of the things that I'm a big believer in is the kind of slow food, getting local stuff and taking your time to make it, as opposed to fast food, just going somewhere and it's like, oh, I got this delivery and now we have mint. So I wanted to be able to say, we're able to harvest mint from our gardens, walk 100 yards, it's prepped and it's ready for service, and it's going into somebody's drink that night. From the morning it's harvested to the evening that it's served. So we're able to get a lot of those ingredients. I don't think we could get them any fresher if we tried, unless we were to start growing at the bars. So we got that Best Sustainability Initiative last year from Venues Now, and that helped me expand the gardens this year. I had a lot of credit to go with that, and it was something that we want people to see. So I've been building additional garden beds all around the amphitheater in very visible areas. We have some at our north box office. We have some by our south box office, and we're going to be expanding to some of the other gates that we have, and it'll be very obvious that like we're growing stuff on site and it's being put into your drinks same day. We started out with those 13, and it's currently at 26, and by the end of the year we're hoping to expand to 30. If we can get more than that, great.
Yeah.
But I initially came in no experience gardening, and now I have 26 beds at the Orion, and I have a farm at home. So
there you go.
I got that bug bad.
Yeah, and I know you and Anthony actually just met recently at an event or some sort of thing. Talk a little bit about kind of. And I know from RCP's perspective, kind of some of this, just like the things that the Orion is doing, and kind of how y'all are kind of marrying that with what's happening in the district as a whole. Because I mean, the district's growing like crazy, and the role that you play with RCP is growing like crazy.
Well, on our mind, mostly right now is composting, with the amount of waste that comes out of MidCity. And, so one of the questions I have for you regarding composting, I think most people think of composting and think of something that, you can bury in your backyard. But really there's a pretty fine line drawn between composting and backyard composting, which is what I was referring to. So I know for composting materials, you require all of your vendors or anybody that comes into Orion to use fully compostable materials. Have you seen, I guess, what have you seen over the last few years in regard to bioplastics or PLA or things that need to be industrially composted to being able to source materials that can be composted within your backyard?
Yeah. So the two levels, there's home composting and commercial composting. We have requirements for what our vendors are bringing in. If it's going to be a compostable material, it needs to have the BPI certification or the TUV, which is a European equivalent. TUV home compost is what we look for the home composting materials. At the Orion, we have a single-use plastic ban. So our vendors are not coming in with plastic forks, plastic sauce ramekins, plastic plates, anything like that. Any plastic utensils, wrappers, balloons. So that is a big part of my job, because preventing microplastics from entering the environment is nobody's doing enough with it right now, and we're only starting to see the negative effects that it has on the environment and on human anatomy and physiology in general. So when we're requiring our vendors to have single-use plastics eliminated from their service, and when we're starting to ask them to say, hey, we want you to have compostable materials, and we actually don't allow our vendors to do any of the bioplastics. So we don't allow PLA, other than there's only one exception, and that's for a lining on like a cup or a bowl for something that can't leak. That is the single exception for bioplastics. And that's because even if these materials get composted, they still shed microplastics as they break down. And we want to ensure that we're minimizing the damage that goes downstream from us. So what we've started doing is I am heavily involved in sourcing for our vendors internally. For anybody that's coming to the Orion, I am more than willing to do the legwork for them to find these products that they need. And that's something that I really emphasize, and I try and get them lists of products that we approve of that are good. We have preferred vendors because there's a lot of plastic pretenders. So there'll be, if you just go on Amazon and you're looking up like whatever the most eco-friendly, you're putting in the buzzwords, compostable, green, whatever. There's a lot of companies that are unscrupulous, and they are trying to get whoever's money, and they don't care about the products they're selling. So that is a problem for us. And we always try to nip it in the bud. And, we talk about plastic pretenders as much as possible. And it's like, these are the vendors that we trust. And there are vendors that go above and beyond for, it's not just they have good products, they're doing good things on the back end as well. We prefer like 1% for the planet vendors, if they're doing any sort of environmental donations, things like that. So like World Centric is our gold standard. Great company. They do a lot to give back to communities in need. And they are a little bit more expensive because of that, but it's a good company. And I'm aware that a lot of the vendors that we have come in, they're locally owned, they're family owned. They're not able to spend as much as we are as a large company. And that's one of the things that I always try to keep in mind is making sure that we can hit about the prices that they're at least close to the prices that they're paying currently, and that we're getting them quality materials. Because if you remember when the pandemic first started up and there were the videos of sea turtles with straws in their noses, everybody went for the paper straws. The issue with those was the demand was so great, there wasn't enough material. And not the most glorious comparison, but when you think of toilet paper, you're thinking of how many ply it has. 1 ply toilet paper, it's cheap, it's super thin, and you're going to tear through it. It was the same thing with straws, where they were like 1 ply, maybe 2 ply straws. So they were just dissolving. You weren't having that experience that you should be having with just a regular straw. So, one of the things that's been happening over the last few years is we're getting higher quality materials, and we're starting to get those higher quality materials cheaper, and we're starting to see larger volumes because more companies are investing in, or they're voting with their dollar for these compostable products that are of quality from reputable vendors.
Yeah, and so like as you, I mean, it's interesting because like you've been a part of the Orion and kind of seen, how the sustainability team has grown around you. Like we talked about a little bit about it off air. Like you have a really good team that allows you on the shows, on the weeks, on the months that you're bouncing around to event to event to event to ensure that you do meet that level of expectation that you had and that the Orion has for what the work that y'all are doing. Kind of as we were wrapping up, I think there's like 9 shows left of the 2025 season, and we're kind of going into the 2026 new year. What are some of the, like, obviously we talked a little bit about the plant beds as being kind of a big area that you're working on to kind of wrap up this year and kind of add more. What are some other things that maybe people can see on the community element or on the general work that y'all are doing at the Orion, kind of going into finishing off this year and into next year?
So that team, it used to be that it was me and my previous manager Shelby that going around taking care of all the cups, and it was a nightmare. And we definitely needed more help because I figured out I can get around the entire amphitheater in 14 minutes. And I was just doing that continuously throughout the shows, making sure that cups weren't being thrown away and making sure that trash wasn't going into the cup bins. Because even though it's 2 streams for people that have never been exposed to the sustainability work that we're trying to do, it's not obvious. And we've been constantly trying to improve how we handle these streams. There's graphics now, silhouettes of the cups on the cup bins, so it's a picture. You can get that easy. And we have words around our trash cans say no cups, trash only. So that we're trying to simplify these things and make them as obvious as possible, because not everybody's going to read the words on the bins, because we have please return your cups here written on them, but it's below knee level. So we didn't have the best idea for the graphic design to start out, but we also have it on the cups where it says, I'm a reusable cup, please return me to the bins provided. But not everybody reads those. You're just trying to have a great time at a show. And I've certainly been in the mindset that a lot of people at these shows have, where it's just like, I'm trying to have a good time. I'm not especially concerned about this. And especially before I started working at the Orion and I was super into sustainability, even like during college, I wasn't especially concerned about how the recycling was going to be going. But my mindset has changed, and we're starting to see, season 4, everybody else's mindset is changing as well. So, we brought on the originally sustainability assistants. Now they're eco stewards. So they're, bringing some stewardship to the environment and to the amphitheater itself, where they're helping me out, making sure that those cups aren't being thrown away, educating our guests throughout the shows. And we're really trying to educate the crowd that we regularly have come into the Orion, and we try and prime people that might be coming from out of town for a show as well. Could you repeat the end of the question?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's interesting because there is so much that is going on, and there's like kind of this continuous evolution of the work that y'all are doing, and the kind of the as it's becoming more aware to the public. There's you're trying to find new and innovative ways to continue to be an eco-friendly place. So it's just incredible just to see how that all unfolds, because there is so much that goes on within the walls of the Orion.
Yeah. A lot of the work is just behind the scenes. Like the majority of what our guests are exposed to now, the gardens and the cups. And then we have a mural that talks about our partnership with ReWorld. We have Tennessee Riverkeeper coming in for shows pretty regularly now. One of our bars, Redstone Junction, actually donates $1 from each sale to Tennessee Riverkeeper. And I need to check the numbers again. I know that a few months ago, we were sitting somewhere around $15,000 donated since we first started that initiative. And I'm sure that we're closing in on $20,000. And Riverkeeper is a great organization. And they were our first sustainability partner that actually came to us when the amphitheater first opened. So we're always looking to increase the amount of initiatives that we're doing, like that partnership with Tennessee Riverkeeper. One of the things that I'm looking, to the future for is guest-facing composting, because we have composting in our restaurant, we have composting in our artist catering, we have composting behind the bars, but we don't have it for our guests yet. So next year, that's something that we're going to be looking at doing. And initially, we worked with Huntsville Compost in 2022, and then they had to close their doors, and we just didn't have a compost solution. And then I was able to meet with New Terra Compost winter of 2023, and in 2024 we started partnership with them at the Neil Young show, because Neil Young was like a huge moment of just validation for our sustainability program, because we kind of lost the show, like they had pulled, and then we started talking about our sustainability efforts, and they got interested again, and then they came. And one of the things that we were able to do for that first show, because knowing the crowd that we were going to have coming in, they were at least a bit more environmentally aware. We were actually able to get composting in a guest-facing format for that show. And we had a lot of success with that. And so we've had New Terra on as a partner since then. And all it took was me talking to one of the founders, Michael Ryan, on the phone for about 2 hours. It was initially going to be maybe 15, 20 minutes, just talk about it. Ended up going way longer just because we were having a great time. And now we're looking at getting them expanded into the Huntsville area. We're going to have them at Lumberyard. They're going to be doing more work with us at the Orion. And we're hoping to get more businesses on board, like RCP and a lot of smaller restaurants and shops around town. And I'm very excited that we were able to bring this service to the Huntsville area that had pretty much gone extinct.
Yeah.
There aren't that many composting businesses in the state. I think that New Terra, and there might be one in Birmingham. That's about it.
Yeah.
So it's, the state of Alabama is just terribly underserved as far as sustainability, recycling infrastructure goes. Like, we work with Phoenix Glass. They're the only company that does glass recycling in North Alabama. And we work with SA Recycling for our aluminum, and they're one of very few businesses that can actually operate with the volume of aluminum that we put out. There's New Terra, obviously. We work with pretty much the only recyclers, composters in most of these material industries right now, because that's the only option we have, because there's just nothing here yet. And what we're hoping to do at the Orion is to kind of leverage our influence so that we can get more green businesses on board, and we can show the community that if we can operate the amphitheater at this scale sustainably, and we can operate the lumberyard at that scale sustainably, everybody else can do it too. And we always want to try and get involved as much as possible whenever people come to us with, hey, we want to get a sustainability initiative set up. And my kind of golden child for that is aluminum recycling. It's easy to do. Aluminum has the highest value of any commonly recyclable material. So you can get paid for aluminum recycling versus having to pay for it. And, the recyclers want it, and it's easy to get aluminum beverages packaged in aluminum. You can get water packaged in aluminum. Like at the Orion, we use open water. You could change pretty much all your vending machines to aluminum cans, and then you can just start putting aluminum bins around, and people are going to recycle their aluminum.
Yeah.
And then on the back end, you're able to turn that around for potentially profit.
Yeah.
Or you're able to break even on it at least.
Yeah, it's incredible just to see that the impact and just kind of how important sustainability is for the Orion. And it's a testament. I mean, I think you see other amphitheaters, you see other venues and other organizations starting to take notice of the work y'all are doing. And so it's incredible just to see not only the effect it's going to have, and it is having in North Alabama and Huntsville, but also the effect it's having kind of in the broader sense. We'll be sure to have everything in the episode notes with kind of links to some of the things we talked about, some of the initiatives that y'all have, some of the resources that you've mentioned. And so if anyone wants to find out more information, definitely visit those links and kind of learn more about what you're doing and kind of ways they can get involved as well. And I feel like we're going to have you on the podcast in a couple of years to talk a little bit more, because it's going to completely change, and the impact y'all are going to have is going to be is tenfold what it is today. But I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, there are a lot of changes that we're currently making in order to expand our sustainability footprint. One of the things that we actually started doing this year was landscape waste recycling. So I work with local arbor companies to get wood chips, and instead of purchasing pine straw, we're just getting wood chips for free from these companies, and free is a great price. And we're able to count that towards our recycling statistics. And that helps us remove these materials from the landfill. It helps us benefit local businesses and those arbor companies. And then we're able to make sure that we have all these nutrients that would otherwise be locked up in the landfill being put back into the soil. And soil health is something that's definitely really neglected. When we talk about the gardening that we're doing, we use Earth Touch. They're our big garden sponsor. They sponsor literally everything to do with our gardens, the trellising, the plants, the soil that we put in there, everything. So, I love using them at home for my fun too, but we get compost from them at the start of the year. We top dress our beds. That's it. We don't do any chemicals. We don't put any fertilizers on there. We don't put any biocides, pesticides, herbicides, nothing. We would be certified organic if we wanted to pay a few $1,000s to get the certification, but because we do follow organic standards, we can say that we're organic. We just can't say that we're certified. So you're getting very high quality ingredients, for everything that's coming out of the garden. And I always like to remind people that the Orion is an elevated experience. And, I would compare it to a lot of the very nice bars and other venues that we have downtown, just because we're trying to make this as nice of an experience as possible. Like when you come to the Orion, it's not just you're here for a concert, you're here for a culinary experience. You're here for that beverage experience as well. So we're able to get all of these materials, ingredients, and, we're using as much as we can locally so that we can put a lot of money back into the local economy. I did a little bit of math, which I hate doing, in order to track how much money that sustainability alone has put back into the local economy. And we've had over $100,000 of impact since 2022.
Wow. Yeah. And it's incredible just to see like how all of those pieces work together. We've done other episodes with the Orion and with people on TVG staff. So we'll be sure to link to those as well. But yeah, I appreciate you being here. I think it was a lot. It's a conversation. I think it's going to continue to be had more and more by people. And I think it's incredible just to see what y'all have been able to do, but I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.